Welcome back, guys, to yet another World of Warcraft video on this channel. Today I have an interesting one for you guys. Obviously, as you can tell based on the title and the thumbnail of this video, this is going to be a somewhat updated twinking guide. Now, for anyone that needs guides on how to set up a level 10 twink, how to basically get to starting, figure it out, understand why this works, I have a full playlist of everything that I've created on these twinks. I have a playlist for that, for all those videos, so make sure you check that out. I'm gonna link it down below in the description, maybe in the comments as well, but probably just the description, so check that out. Because what I'm going to be talking about today is the updates that we've seen after phase 2 of the pre-patch. So basically what has happened with Dragonflight coming out, even though it's not out yet. Obviously, by the time that you watch the video, some of you, we may already be in Dragonflight, but phase 2 of the pre-patch is basically what Dragonflight is, at least for old world content. So before we do get into the video, I would greatly appreciate it if you guys could drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel with all the notifications on, and I want to thank all the patrons over on Patreon. Of course, the list is enormous, and I greatly appreciate all the support over there. Now, if you guys are interested in checking it out or just supporting me a little more, specifically tier 2 over on Patreon has access to all my TSM groups. It has access to my sniping groups that are available through Point Blank Sniper and Auctionator, and then there is also a very long document of daily code making activities for an alt army. Now, and all these things, I will also be updating them for Dragonflight, so if that sounds at least a little interesting to you, make sure you go check that out. The link is down in the description below. But let's get into it. So the way that we're going to do this is I'm going to go over the 4 different dungeons we can do on a level 10. Okay, and that is going to be Hellfire Ramparts, the Blood Furnace, the Slave Pens, and the Underbug. Now, there's without a doubt no change. It is still the Burning Crusade that has the best dungeons for being able to boost, obviously, your own ults or other people, depending on how you decide to do this kind of boosting. Without a doubt. And actually today, which is why I waited a little bit until, you know, phase 2 had been out a little bit, there's been a lot of changes, okay? And specifically today, we've seen a hotfix that's been undocumented that has severely nerfed the HP on bosses and also the damage on bosses, and they've also adjusted the HP and damage on mobs, which means that, you know, the twinking is pretty much easier than it's ever been before, but a lot of these tips and tricks are something that we've known about for a while, and also the style of it. So let's get straight into it. The first one we're going to look at is going to be Hellfire Ramparts. So Hellfire Ramparts is really important. For a tip for this dungeon specifically is you can leave your ults at the beginning of the entrance. They will literally get experience for the entire thing. They will not miss out on a single mob the entire dungeon, so you do not have to have them on follow. If you're boosting somebody, it's the same thing. They can stand at the start of the dungeon and you can just run through and kill everything. Now, this dungeon, obviously, as people know, it does have some issues with a lot of CC. The greatest thing you can do is either you can pull small packs of mobs and kill them, or you can kite them. Okay, and obviously on a Brewmaster Monk, especially if you have potions of swiftness or whatever, swiftness potions, I think they're called. Speed potions, basically. If you have those, you're even faster. But obviously, with the pre-patch and the new changes, as a Brewmaster, but also if you're a Mistweaver, you have Tiger's Lust. And not only that, you also have the roll, as you saw that I used right there. So you have lots of opportunities to be able to kite if you do end up getting CC'd. And that's really just the majority of this dungeon. You just face roll everything. You want to kill almost every single mob in here because they're very easy to grab. You don't really have... It's a very linear dungeon. You don't really have to go out of your way specifically to grab any mobs. And that's really it, man. You run over, and then the only thing you want to do is you don't need to kill Omora. You just want to go ahead and kill Vasruden because he's the last obviously he's not the last boss of the dungeon, but he will give you your dungeon completion bonus, because in the LFG he is counted as the last boss. It's been a thing for a very long time, but that is the TLDR for the best possible scenario when it comes to Hellfire Ramparts. So let's go on to the next one. Now, the next one we are going to take a look at is going to be the Blood Furnace. Now, the Blood Furnace, you do actually have to take your ults or people that you're boosting along with you just a little bit, okay? It's not that far. The only thing that you have to do, and I'll show you guys, you can leave them at the entrance of the first boss room, okay? And in the Blood Furnace, you want to kill all the mobs that are in here because, again, same thing as Hellfire Ramparts, is a very linear dungeon. You can grab pretty much every single mob, and it's still very, very worth it, okay? Super worth it to do. And where you want to leave your ults or people that you're boosting is right here at the entrance of this boss room. If you leave them here, first of all, they won't die by all these technicians mobs because they have bombs and dynamite that will kill them if you're not careful. But that's besides the point, because if you leave them right here at the beginning of this boss room, what will happen is they will get experience for the rest of the dungeon because of how it's designed. So it's very, very, very easy to just leave them there, as you can see that I do, and then I just run along and go about the business. And this is the same thing as Hellfire Ramparts. You can just run along, pull as many mobs as you want. There's less CC in this dungeon, which makes it even more reliable and even easier. And as you can see, I almost just one-shot that boss, which is obviously a very big difference. And you do want to kill any stragglers, especially if they walk over the ults, because some of them will target the ult, so that's kind of important. But besides that, you can really just run through the entire dungeon and pull everything. You'll never die. And obviously, if you guys want the armory for my twinks, so you can see what enchants and what gear that I have, that will also be in the description down below. So make sure you check that out if that is something that you want. But besides that, it's really, really simple to go through this dungeon. There's a couple tricks that you can do. Obviously, with the second boss room here, when you activate the lever, you start the process of unlocking 4 cages. What I do is I usually just run over to set cages. If I have a lot pulled here, I usually stun, as you can see right there, because we don't accidentally want to get stunned, or not accidentally, but unfortunately get stunned by some of the mobs and then just die. So that's why I do it. But then otherwise, I usually go over to where they are, or I run over to the next cage, so they'll run all the way over to it, and then, you know, it's basically just small efficiencies that can make your run a little easier. As you can see, I waited for it to unlock, and then I just start running over towards the next one, and that's really it. For this dungeon, there's really nothing else. You just kill everything until you get to the last boss, and then you're done. There's nothing else to say about this dungeon. So we'll move on to the next one. Now, the next one we're going to go over is going to be the Underbug, okay? And the reason that I decided to take this one before Slave Pens is because this one is very similar to the other ones that we've talked about, except it's not linear. But you can actually take your ults, and you can't leave them at the start of the entrance or at the start of the instance because they will not get experience for the entire dungeon. But you do not have to take them very far, because we figured out in the community quite a while ago now, but we figured out that you can actually leave them on this little island that I'm walking towards now, here on the recording here, and you can leave them out on this little island. I'll show where it is on the map too, so you can easily find it. The thing about this place is that if you leave them here, they will literally get experience for every single mob that we kill in the entire dungeon. You're leaving them right in the middle, and the range for how experience basically is available, it's in range. All the characters, either if it's your own or you're boosting someone, they will get experience if they're standing right there. So that's what I recommend that people do. Now, the other thing about this dungeon is you do not have to kill the bosses. As we watched right before with Blood Furnace, you kind of need to kill the bosses because otherwise you won't unlock the next rooms. But the thing about the Underbug is you can just run straight past them. You don't need to kill any boss but the last one. There's no reason to, because they take quite a while. You could do it because it's actually where now that the bosses are super easy to kill, you know, they give a little bit more experience than mobs. They're probably like 5 mobs worth, maybe 6 potentially. So if you want to, you can, but there's no reason to. So if you really want to go real fast, then you can just go ahead and skip every single boss. And again, in this dungeon, there are no stuns. Literally 0. At least to my knowledge. I don't remember any stuns. But the CC are very, very tiny. They do not happen very often, which means you can pull quite a lot in this dungeon without running into any trouble. But again, as you can see, we're just running along here, killing all the mobs. We haven't, as you can see over on the right side, we haven't killed any bosses at all, and we're not going to because there is not a reason to. It's not really worth it. At least that's my opinion. And then all you do is kill the last boss, and you're done with this dungeon. That's it. There's nothing else to it. That is literally everything for the Underbug. Everything that you need to know to make it the most efficient dungeon run possible. Now let's go over to the last one, which is, in my opinion, the worst one. Good old slave pens. So what I decide, obviously, if you want to, you can take your characters with you. And what you can do is you can take them, as I'm showing right there, you can take them along with you until like halfway into the instance, and you can throw them off the bridge into the water. And then on the other side, obviously, towards right there where I'm mousing over, you can take them there, and then they'll get experience with the whole dungeon. What I have found is that it slows you down quite a lot. So if you wanted to go faster and you don't care about hitting a potential dungeon lockout, obviously 10 dungeon runs in an hour, well, then what I do, because I don't like this dungeon, is I just take my Twink and I run straight. I just hold my W key on the entire time. I don't kill any of the bosses. I just run along. And the reason I do this is because I want to get this dungeon over with as soon as possible. Also, another thing is that the mob density is in this dungeon, it's not very linear. So there's not that many mobs in this dungeon. So that's why I don't really find it worth it. And there's a lot of slows and annoying things that happen. So what I usually do is I just run along on my Twink and get it over with and get to the better dungeons. So that's basically what slave pins is. There's only really one other thing, because you're not killing the first 2 bosses. The only other thing that you need to know about is when you're fighting this guy, the last boss. You want to fight him right on the edge, right here. So when you pull him, as you can see, I'm standing right on the edge of that little ledge. And you want to fight him like this because he's not going to be able to use his acid spray. Now, it doesn't really matter that much after the nerfs to all the bosses' health and damage has come in. But if you want to make it even easier than before, then as you can see, the acid spray is not working. It's doing 0 damage to us. And this is how, if you want to fight him with the least amount of trouble, that is how you're going to go about it, okay? But that is everything that I have when it comes to tips on how to maximize the efficiency on your twinking. Now, what a lot of people have been asking about too is how fast it is. Now, I've probably potentially put that in the title or the thumbnail, and if I didn't, well, then I'm here to tell you that obviously with the addition of 10 new levels, going from instead 10 to 50, we can now go to 10 to 60. Obviously that adds a little bit of time. But what I've been able to figure out is that 10 to 60, based on my testing and other people's numbers, is that it should take, if you're not slacking, right? If you're actively playing on your Twink, then it should take you somewhere in between 5 to 6 hours, okay? And people are like, well, Sand, that's not faster. Well, it is, because it's the addition of 10 extra levels, okay? So that's very important to think about. We're not just talking 10 to 50, we're talking 10 all the way to 60. So doing 10 to 60, at least for me, right, or if you're boosting multiple characters, a couple characters depending, then that is very fast, going from 10 to 60 in 5 to 6 hours. But yeah, that is everything that I had. If there's any other updates that are worthy of a video for the channel, then I will of course be making that. If you guys have any questions, make sure you drop them down in the comments below. And if you did watch this far, then the word of the day is watch. Not as in watch time or the fact that you're watching the video, but this watch. This is my watch, and I don't know. That's why I thought about it. It's stupid, I know. But either way, I appreciate you guys watching the video, and if you did, make sure you, again, drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't, with all the notifications on. And I'll see you on the next one. See you guys!